Alrighty. Well, it looks like we are live. Hello, Flexmaster. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Hello,
We'll wait a couple minutes
welcome.
before we really dive in this morning. We've got a lot to talk about. 10th edition core rules were leaked, which is pretty wild. So yeah. So now we have the whole, well, not the full picture, but we have a big enough uh, picture of what the core rules look like, so at least we can kind of get an idea on how it's changed. Bob, have you had a chance to read the full rules?
Not the full rules. Unfortunately, I've been traveling for work
Hmm.
quite a bit for
Excuses,
the last little
excuses.
bit. I have
Working.
perused some of it. So we're going to be kind of going along real time
So
information.
this will be real time new information for Bob. I actually have read the rules. I read everything that was leaked, including the strats. We're going to talk about it all today. I made a changelog of sorts, where where I went through and I read the rules. A lot of you know who have been on our Discord, and maybe some of you are even on the Auspex Tactics Discord as well. I'm a moderator there. I'm pretty well known there as being very rule savvy. Like I really love to know all the interactions of rules because number one. Um, it helps you in games because you know how an interaction is going to work. um, but it also just helps me know my army and know the game very well. So I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of knowing the current rules and comparing them to the new ones.
Yep.
So I went through and made a document which we're going to show you. We're going to go phase by phase and talk about it today. Um, and of all the changes, all the things that are different. So if we're not talking about it, that means it's exactly the same as it is in ninth. And there's a lot that changed. There's a lot of subtle changes, but important changes. There's also not a lot that changed at the same time, if that makes sense. Like, I know that uh, I sort of initially, when they first announced this, they're like a full reset. We're going, indexes and, full reset. And it's like, oh my God, it's not going to be 40K. Like, what game are we even playing now? But it's still 40K. It's still the 40K that we've been playing. Um, the core rules themselves have some important big changes, but it's not so different that you're going to be like, what game? I have to relearn a whole new game. Like, I already know how to play ninth. Am I not going to know how to play, 10th? Yeah, it'll look very familiar, but you'll want to read the rules thoroughly because there are some very subtle but important changes. So we'll go over those. What do I think the rules? Atanis asks, what do I think the rules for Black Templars would be? Honestly, I don't really have any clue. I'm hoping that we keep our vows. I think that's a defining feature of us. Now, how they incorporate that, is it going to be a detachment special rule? Is it going to be something else that we just get on top of Oath of Moment or replacing Oath of Moment? I don't know. I really hope that we keep vows, though. It's sort of like our defining thing,
Yep.
as it were. But all our special characters will be there. We already know that marshals and castellans are getting their own data sheets. So instead of, hey, take a captain and add these things to make him a marshal or whatever, add these extra options, we're just getting a whole data sheet with marshal and all his options, including our special ones. Um, Based on that, on those two units that we're getting a specific data sheet for, I would not be surprised if we also got specific data sheets for all of our tanks that can take a multi-melta that nobody else can. So like impulsors, well, all the Primaris grav tanks, basically. So um, devout push. One can hope that we can keep devout push. Obviously, it would be a stratagem. It's one of our best, if it not our best stratagem. So, so yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to be probably seeing. A lot of the previews. There's been basically the rules as detachments. Imperial Knights, I think, is going to be something close to what we're going to be seeing, where you get a couple of rules. You get to pick one at the beginning of the battle. Um, it's always going, and then maybe depending on what it is, we get, like if you succeed in doing whatever its challenge is, then you get the whatever bonus.
Yeah, the
Um,
achieving the thing, whatever bonus. Yeah,
so something like that.
something too that I'm hoping for is they specifically mentioned that they are baking in the stratagems that were specific to units. We've already seen this with Terminators.
Yeah,
They get a +1. They can ignore. It's actually even better than Fury the First. They're getting a +1 to hit against what the oaths target, and they ignore all ballistic skill and weapon skill modifiers if they want to, which is pretty awesome. So. Um, Something that I'm hoping is that our sword brethren get baked in. They call it sustained hits now. I would love for them to get baked in sustained hits. That would be amazing. So, and it would really set them apart as an offensive unit from something more durable like Blade Guard. So, uh, in any case, um, let's get started talking about these leaks. Let me pull this up here. There we go. All right, so the command phase, not a ton has changed here. But there wasn't a ton with the command phase to begin with. So you're still going to gain a CP at the beginning of each turn. One of the big differences is you're going to start with 0 CP. Everybody starts with 0 CP, which means now our pool of CP has been whittled down to a maximum of 10 per game, unless you have some way to generate CP yourself. We've already seen a few armies that do. That's a big change right there. Is that CP is even more precious than it was before. Good morning, Grand Enforcer, with the super chat. Thank you so much. As always, thank you for doing one of these live streams. It's always great to get the Black Templars perspectives on the changes that are coming to the game. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that support there, Grand Enforcer. So, so the other big change to the command phase is morale is gone. Now it's battle shock, and it happens in the command phase, and it's rolled at the end of the command phase. And something that I noted is that obviously we can attach characters now to units.
yep.
Attached characters count towards that unit being below half strength or not. So if you attach a character, now your 10-man unit is 11-man, and you need to be still, it gives you that extra body. So, Bob, what do you think of Battle Shock? We talked
I
a
think
little bit
it's
about
a
this previously, but let's talk about it
yeah.
again here.
I mean, I like the mechanic a lot. It gives you the ability to interact with something that you might not necessarily be able to kill. So, for example, we have our flamer unit that's going to be coming out. Maybe you're not able to kill something a little bit more durable. All you have to do is hit that unit, and you're going to throw battle shock test on this
Mm-hmm.
unit.
Yep. Yeah,
So,
I think it's honestly pretty brutal, Battle Shock as a rule. Um, And on the surface, some people might not think so, but I think it is. First of all, you're going to lose all of your objective control on that unit.
yeah,
You're going to not be able to fall back, and you're not going to be able to um, use stratagems on them, except for one, which we'll go over later on. Um, so that could be pretty crucially game swinging. If
hmm
you fail a battle shock test, and you have to take one every turn. If you're below half strength, you're taking one every turn. So it's not like a one and done thing. You're taking it, if a unit ends up below half strength towards the beginning of the game, they're going to test every single turn for the rest of the game. And that could make it pretty swingy for what that unit's able to do if they're supposed to be holding down an objective. So it can definitely be, it can be brutal. And there's obviously we've already seen ways where you can um, either force test outside of that, but also get minuses. So yeah, Grand Enforcer says no. Not that we're much worried on morale. Our faith keeps us going. That's right. We are Space Marines, and we shall know no fear. I think something too that a lot of people are getting hung up on that I've seen, not necessarily in our channel, but in other channels, people are complaining about the oh well, my leadership isn't. I feel like my leadership should be higher for my army, and it's like, listen, this isn't like how like failing a battle shock test or taking a battle shock test isn't so much about uh well, I'm going to be scared and run away. It's not how scared you get. It's how effective you can be when you're reduced numbers. So even
Yeah.
Necrons, who the warriors are mindless, you know they're fearless. Like they have no fear because they're literally mindless. But if they're not led by a noble, they basically just break down to like standard protocols and they just mill about. Like, and we've seen this in the lore, so I'm totally fine with it. I actually really like it. I think this is a pretty good solution to the problem of morale just being useless in ninth.
Yeah, I agree. It allows you to interact with things on the
Hmm.
board, but
Yep.
like I mentioned, like something that you're not able to kill. Now you can at least interact with it, even if you don't have the weapons. So you're not going to be hard countered as much. So if you can't knock something out, but if it's at half strength, I mean, maybe you can still take the objective from your opponent. So I like it. We're gonna probably see some type of rules for Space Marines because we've traditionally in all of the editions had a way to at least mitigate this. But it basically reminds me of the leadership and fallback um, for the rules in fourth and fifth edition,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
So like you're continuing to test leadership and or else you keep falling back. So
Yeah, and something that GW mentioned it, but they didn't really talk about the what it does is uh, it says if a unit falls back, you must take a desperate escape test for every model in that unit. They did not really talk about what that means yet, but it is in this rules leak. So we'll go over that here shortly because it's part of the movement phase. Obviously, fallback, it's part of the movement phase. So we will let's take a look. So the movement phase. So there's a bunch of changes for the movement phase, and I like pretty much all of them. So we'll start with the fact that you can now move over friendly models when moving. That's huge. That is is huge change because now it means that like characters that are maybe by themselves or whatnot, or like models that have huge bases like Helbrecht aren't going to get in the way, like because you can just move over them. Obviously, you have to clear them. You can't end on top. Um, but that is definitely a pretty big change. The only caveat is that vehicles or monsters cannot move over other vehicles and monsters, which makes sense,
yeah,
and I'm fine with. But infantry can move over vehicles and monsters, so that's pretty interesting.
yeah, they're just crawling over the top hatches and jumping off the other
Yeah,
side, and
exactly. Running between giant legs.
yeah, I think that's really cool because it allows you to maneuver your board a little bit easier than we have been in the past. So you can still
Especially
use
with
those
big blobs of infantry.
yeah, just kind of allow you to get around the board easier. It allows you to play with the terrain a lot easier as well.
Yep.
So you're just not going to have like the huge maneuvering issues, at least on your side of the board. I like that they kept it so you can't move over opponent stuff, and that's
Right.
obviously probably not going
Right.
to jump back or whatever. But
Yeah, and something else that I think we're going to be seeing more of is any units that we're attaching characters to that are going to be walking are going to need to be either super durable, if they're small, or just larger units overall. Because once that squad is dead, that character doesn't get lone operative unless he has it innately, and he's basically can just be shot just like any other unit. So it makes them really vulnerable. So we're not going to be attaching characters to like 5-man intercessor squads or something like that. We're going to be wanting to attach them to large blocks of infantry, um, to protect them and keep them alive and buffing stuff for as long as possible.
And I didn't see it in the rules in what I saw, but maybe it's in there and you just noticed it. But I don't think you can attach a character after the game starts. So it's just
No,
that one, and then
just at the
you're done.
beginning. You're one and done. Yep. Which
Yeah.
makes that
So
all that more important that you choose your character's bodyguard unit carefully. Now, we haven't really, aside from that one article with the Primaris Lieutenant, we have not seen any lists of what bodyguard units are. Um, Presumably, they're going to be like armor styles or like units, right?
yeah,
But at the same time, I don't know because like we just don't know enough information yet. Presumably, like Helwart and Grimaldus will be able to go with Sword Brethren and Crusader squads and things like that. There's no reason why they wouldn't be able to. But would like a Terminator be able to go with like a Crusader squad? Probably not. Um, so we'll just have to wait and see. But from your list of units that you can bodyguard a character with, we're going to want to choose carefully and make sure that we're choosing the right unit for that character to make sure that they stay alive as long as possible.
yeah. It really, this edition, the rules that I've seen so far kind of discourages the MSU trade style list that
Hmm.
I typically run. A lot more vehicle heavy, a lot more large units, just based on making sure that you have the durability to survive. Your characters getting that reroll on different things, but we don't have all the attachment rules yet to be able to say for sure. But it's looking like we're going to be leaning towards those more durable playstyles. So
Yeah.
hopefully, you got ahead of the curve and you started painting some Crusader squads.
Yeah, and I think too, the I don't think MSU trade style lists are going to be dead. I
Yeah,
just think that we are, because at least in my list, I think I only have 3 characters, and 2 of them start in the game in a transport. So they'll still be viable, but are you going to be attaching, you know, a character to a small 5-man unit? Unless that 5-man unit is like Terminators or something very durable, probably not.
yeah, yeah,
Just because it's too risky. They become a sitting duck very easily. So, Andrew says that suits our Crusader squad, our big Crusader squads, don't you think? Yeah, absolutely. Imagine, good luck chewing through Grimaldus attached to a 20-man Crusader squad because I'm sure he'll still give buffs. I don't know what they'll be, obviously, but hopefully he gives some kind of a buff like he gives now to make a big Crusader block more durable. Um, Grand Forces says Tech Marines only with vehicles. Well, we don't know. So I don't think so because the article where they talked about leaders on Games Workshop, in the Warcom article, mentioned Iron Father Farios, I think, and that he gets the lone operative keyword when he's within
yeah,
a certain distance of a vehicle. So I think that means that he can lead a squad if you want him to, or he can get lone operative, which means if you're not familiar, lone operative means you can't be shot outside of 12 inches. So they're completely immune to fire outside of 12 inches if you're a lone operative. So he gets lone operative when he's standing near a tank, which is pretty cool. So I
yeah,
think I think all Tech Marines will probably get something like that, which means if we want to stick them with a squad, we can, but we don't have to.
yeah. And I think that we can probably, or obviously this is not set in glue uh, or stone, but I believe we can probably say that that's going to be applicable for things like our Emperor's Champagne as well, or the like, so that like they can not have to be attached to a unit, but still have some independence. And anything that right now has a buff, like the lieutenants, captains, etc., those are going to be the ones that have to attach to it. So,
Yeah. Now, I'm really actually excited about lieutenants because auto wounds is pretty damn good of a buff. And you can attach him with like a captain to a squad, which means that our castellans are essentially lieutenants. Presumably they get the same buff, maybe not, I don't know. But either way, whatever buff they give, will be able to attach a castellan and like Helbricht or a marshal to a crusader squad or a what you call it, a sword brethren squad. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to be because I think it's going to be pretty cool. Grand Enforcer says our Witch Seeker bolts will either be gone or nerfed. Yeah, I don't know. I know that every army is getting a certain number of enhancements. Is what they're calling them now.
yeah,
Enhancements are, I think they're in boarding actions. I haven't played enough boarding actions to really, or read enough boarding actions to really know, but I'm pretty sure that's like the upgrade mechanic in boarding actions, and it basically replaces relics and warlord traits, from my understanding. So we'll have to see how that works. That the leaked document doesn't tell us anything like that, um, so we'll have to see. It is what it is. It'll be sad to lose some of our cool stuff, but everybody is losing stuff too, so it's not like we're getting singled out or something. So we'll adapt and move on, like we always do, right?
yep, exactly.
So let's get back to that falling back, that desperate escape test. So falling back is when your standard falling back is the same. Can't move over enemy models. Gotta, you can move within engagement range as long as you don't end with engagement range. But now you can just choose to desperate fall back instead. No CP required. I remember there was a desperate breakout, I think is the name of it. Um, was the strat that you could use in ninth. In any case, desperate escape tests. So the way this works is, let's say you've got a model that's trapped. So this also means that you can no longer try point models and force them to spend CP. Um, so any model that moves through another enemy model when they fall back, you count up the number of models that have moved through an enemy. It doesn't matter how many enemies they move through, just as long as they've moved through one. Yeah,
Yep.
Atanas says that Black Templars don't fall back. Well, you know, every now and then you're in a crappy combat and maybe you want to shoot that unit. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
but in any case, you obviously this excludes Titanic and Fly units. And then for each model that does this, you collect, basically make a pool of D6, and you roll those D6, and on a one or a two, one model from that unit is destroyed. Now you get to pick, which is pretty cool. So like if your special power weapon is trapped and you have to move him over models to get it, you don't have to kill him. It's not that model dies, it's one model from your unit. So if you have three guys that have to move over your thing and one of them is your special weapon, you roll three dice. Let's say you roll one, two. You have to kill a model, but you get to pick whoever it is, which is pretty awesome. Um, and it's still, you're still gonna risk, you know, killing your guys. Um, but at the same time, if you need to get out, you can. And then this is where Battle Shock comes in. Whenever you fall back, uh, regardless if you are battle shocked, the whole unit has to take a desperate fallback test, which is brutal because now one third of your dudes are going to be dead of whatever's left. So that's why battle shock is pretty brutal. so, so,
yep,
especially if you can trap a unit in a bad combat that they don't want to be in, forcing them to now have to sacrifice on average a third of their guys, can be pretty devastating. So, so yeah, thoughts on the new fallback, Bob?
I think it's a pretty cool mechanic. It kind of mixed up older editions fallback with some of the rules for like exploding transports, that type of thing. So I think that's kind of a cool little thing.
Hmm.
Uh, as mentioned before, I don't think we're going to see a ton of it, but there is some play where you do want to fall back and get to like a strategic
Right.
objective, that type of thing, or maybe one of your newer objectives. We haven't seen them all yet, obviously, but yeah, there's some play, so we just have to be careful with it. But it's a good way for strategic players to leverage some extra damage against the opponent. If you know that they want to be able to get to an objective, get there. If they want to fall back or whatever it is that they want to do, this is going to be kind of a handy little trick.
Yep. Um, so flying no longer ignores vertical terrain. Now you move diagonally through the air, GW calls it, to go up. So rather than like having to go to the base of something and then climb up, you can just fly diagonally and land on top. But you're going to measure diagonally. So you no longer just ignore the vertical terrain, which is unfortunate for our Vanguard vets, to say the least. But I think there were probably other units in the game that were abusing this worse than others.
Yeah, I think this is something that needed to be changed many editions ago, because it's a more accurate representation of the
Yeah,
distance that you're moving instead of
exactly.
just being like, nope,
Yeah,
here you go.
exactly. What's up, Bart? Thanks for joining us. And we'll see more about flying diagonally and stuff like that in the charge phase too. So reinforcements, the reinforcement steps. Um, I did go look at the strategic reserves. I didn't create a text paragraph for them, but we'll go over them anyway. Um, it seems to indicate, with strategic reserves and reinforcements in general, that you can just come in from turn two onward. Now, it specifically says in the core rules you can't come in turn one, which is great because that was always a point of confusion for everyone in ninth because the rules just say, like Deep Strike for Terminators just said in any of the end of your movement phases, versus, every single mission pack except open play said not on turn one. So I'm glad they just put this in the core rules to stop the confusion because that was the number one of the top rules questions that I was answering on any rules chat. So, they indicate that you can come in turn two or later. Period. It doesn't say you have to come in turn three. Now, the mission pack may still say turn two or three, like we're used to for matched play, and then they're destroyed if they're. But the core rules do not indicate you have to be in by turn three. So we'll see what happens when we see the mission pack, because I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but the core rules themselves just indicate any turn after any turn two or later. It also now specifically says they've made a normal move when they come in, um, which was a point of confusion in ninth as well. So basically, just some clarifications on the rules, making it easier. The reinforcements really haven't changed too much. Strategic reserves got tweaked a little bit, but overall, just some clarification and which is always a good thing.
Yeah, yep, it's moving phase looks pretty standard there. The biggest change, obviously, you had
Moving over
moving over
stuff.
friendly,
Yep.
but
Which I like
overall,
a lot. I like that a
uh,
lot. That'll help
uh,
us a lot, especially, because we're a faction that favors big blocks of units, and it'll help horde armies too. And like armies like Guard, where like their tanks get trapped in the back because they're stuck behind blocks of infantry, or vice versa. So yeah. So
yeah,
I dig it. So yeah. So moving on. The shooting phase also has quite a bit of significant changes. So we've already talked about this. Characters have no protection unless they're attached to a unit or they have lone operative. And even then, lone operatives can still be shot if they're within 12 inches. So this was probably one of the biggest points of contention in ninth edition was people complaining about how broken character protection was. So they made it super simple and super easy to understand. But man, it's brutal if your character gets caught out in the open. They're basically a sitting duck. So I certainly appreciate them simplifying it because it was complicated to understand who was protected and who wasn't. And this just goes back to our point of we want to make sure we choose our bodyguard units wisely.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So there's also a new ability called Stealth. If every model in this unit has this ability, it's -1 to hit. It doesn't, obviously, I'm sure we'll see some data sheets that say they have Stealth. I don't think we've seen any yet. I feel like we heard something that mentioned Stealth, but I don't remember what it was. But in any case, it's a unit ability, a unit-wide ability, as long as they all have it, -1 to hit. Presumably things like Tau, what are those turn invisible suits are? The stealth suits.
Stealth suits.
Presumably the stealth suits will have this. Probably some other very sneaky units will have stealth. Um, we'll just have to. Maybe it was Gene Stealers. Didn't we see the Gene Stealers data sheet? And I think it had stealth on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you might be
I
right
feel
on
like
that one.
I feel like stealth was mentioned somewhere. I'm like, I wonder what that does. Probably, this. So, so yeah. Uh, Atanas says, "Hope we can charge when we move and advance with the Land Raiders." Um, we cannot charge when we advance unless we have a special ability. But we can move, get out, and then charge, which was the the big thing for Land Raiders coming back is the assault ramp. Um, so this is probably this next one is probably the single biggest change in the shooting phase. This is a huge change. Big guns never tire. So monsters and vehicles can now all just shoot out of combat. You can still target the unit you're engaged with, aside from blast. But you can, like, your dreadnought can stand there and fire his plasma at something uh, outside of the combat, which is pretty wild. It's -1 to shoot or to hit when you do it, unless it's a pistol. But it's that's a significant change.
Hmm.
And some might think, oh my God, that's a ridiculously powerful. But the next part is the makes up for it,
Yeah,
which is now monsters and vehicles can also be shot even if they're engaged. So you can't hide a dreadnought in combat anymore, or whatever your big walker thing is, or a knight. They can all just be shot. Um, it's -1 to hit them. Um, Now the units it's engaged with, so let's say you've got a squad of dudes, um, they that have guns, like let's say Hellblasters are engaged with a walker. They can't shoot. The Hellblasters can't shoot unless they have pistols. Um, so
which they do.
which they do, but they can't shoot their plasma.
Yeah,
Um, so um, so yeah, but everybody else can shoot that unit with a -1 to hit. Um, this is a pretty wild change, honestly, and it's gonna take some getting used to. But at the same time, I kind of like it because there's both a pro and a con, right? It's not just a straight nerf to vehicles. They can't be tagged in combat to deny them shooting anymore, which is always a concern for some tanks and some vehicles. Um, but neither can they hide in combat either. So, which really affects stuff like that wants to be in combat, like walkers.
yeah,
So overall, this is pretty drastic. What do you think?
yeah. I think this one's going to be huge, both for the fact that you can still like interact with the rest of the board
Yeah.
if you get tagged. It's not so much something for us in general, but I think it's going to be an important change for a lot of the things that we have to watch out for like Imperial Knights and things of that nature. Um, maybe at the larger Tau suits, that type of thing. So we still have to be mindful of what they're going to be doing while we're in combat with them. It's
Yeah.
not so easy to just like, oh, we're just going to tag them and they can't do
Cool.
anything.
I
And
tagged your storm surge.
yep,
Goodbye.
yep. So we have to be cognizant of that now in the future. But at the same time, they can't do it to us, where a lot of those armies have in ninth edition have gotten ways to manipulate the board like that so they
Yeah.
want us to be in combat
Yeah.
and then they just fall back and shoot for next to nothing and then they just blast us away. Now we have the ability to just still blast away at them from range. So I think that's kind of an important piece of tech in our toolbox now.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a -1 to hit, but I mean I'll take that over not being able to
Shoot
shoot
it
a.
all,
Yeah,
especially with blast weapons. So Jared NS, have we seen clarification that they can shoot out of their combat? The wording seems vague to me. So I compared this to the existing big guns never tire, and the existing big guns never tire specifically says they can only shoot the unit that they are engaged with. So I've got the wording for the new one pulled up, and I'll read it to you guys. Um, It says monster and vehicle units are eligible to shoot in their controlling player's shooting phase, even while they are within engagement range of one or more enemy units. Ranged weapons equipped by monsters and vehicle units can target one or more of the enemy units that they are within engagement range of, even if other friendly units are also within engagement range of the same unit. Each time a monster vehicle makes a ranged attack, if its unit was within engagement range of one or more selected, unless it's a pistol, subtract one from that attack. So, yeah, they are eligible to shoot even while they're within engagement range. To me, this because the wording is different. They specifically left out you can only target the stuff that's you're in engagement with. Um, they're also that second part is just telling you you can target what's in engagement range of with you because normally you cannot. So yeah, um, uh, s- barring an FAQ, uh, these are this is the way that the wording is, and I believe that they can in fact shoot out of combat, which, like I said, makes up for the fact that they can get pasted while they're sitting in tied up in combat with somebody. So yeah, this makes dreadnoughts pretty awesome because they usually have guns, which they want to use not on what they're engaged with, but they also want to punch stuff in melee most of the time, depending on the dreadnought. So, I'm almost positive that this is how it's going to be. Um, you know, GW may fac it. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see until the rules come out. If there's any additional information on it, but from what it sounds like to me, they are eligible to shoot. It does not say they can um, only shoot because the wording is very clear on the current one. That's why I wanted to compare the two because it's essentially the same rule, right? But the wording for ninth very explicitly says they can only shoot what they're engaged with. The
yeah, and
wording
that
for
bullet point.
10th does not.
Yeah, and the bullet point that if you've seen the leaks, it makes it pretty clear. It says monsters and vehicles can shoot and be shot at even while they're within range of engagement, or
Yep.
engagement range of enemy units.
The little
So
summary bullet point. Yep.
yeah,
Exactly.
it just says can shoot and be shot even if they're within engagement range of enemy units. So it
Right.
doesn't say specifically to fire at that one. I can see the argument where it is vague enough to say, hey, you might only be able to do the engagement range, but if you look down into that little bullet point, it's pretty clear. There's no
Yeah.
restrictions.
Yeah. So yeah, the games will be faster at least. That's the hope.
Yeah,
Especially because I'm a slow player. But we're also, don't forget, lethality is coming down across the board. So, yes, like this means that vehicles and monsters will probably die a little faster, but they're also more durable to begin with. So, like a Meltagun now wounds Redemptor on fives instead of threes. That's a significant buff in durability. And
yeah,
I'm presuming the Redemptor chassis is going to get a 2+ save I can't imagine the Ballistus Dreadnought is the only Redemptor chassis that has a 2 plus save, and that the Brutalis and the Redemptor are 3 plus. That would be weird to me. He doesn't look like he has any additional armor plating. So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I'm hoping that all three of them get a 2 plus save, which would be baller, especially the
Yeah, and
Brutalis.
it's looking like, at least with the vehicles and presumably the monsters, kind of in the same vein, is there's, based on the faction focuses that they've released so far, there's only like two or three factions that have, they've released some of the rules that are able to reliably kill vehicles and monsters with some of their weapons. Imperial Knights are going to be one of them. Votan had some, Tau. But the rest of them are kind of mediocre. Even the Space Marines,
Yeah.
we have their dedicated las cannon as a D6 plus one.
Don't forget.
Ooh.
Don't forget. So I did some math because I feel very meh about the last cannon, the Godhammer last cannons too. And sure enough, against like a tough 10 3 plus save thing, it does like 6 point something wounds, which from 4 shots of a last cannon is pretty pathetic. However, if that unit is oathed, you almost double it. It's like 11 point something. So I think that's maybe why some of the Space Marine weapons are a little meh, because we can oath a unit and drastically increase our damage output.
But at the same time, are you going to be using it against just like the bog standard vehicle that you potentially need to get into that's a transport? I don't think so. And the vehicles are a lot more tough. And our anti vehicle weaponry can't even get into a rhino.
Well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see the data sheets and see what
Ah,
all we get. As always, unfortunately, I think too. Honestly, though, the only gun, Space Marine or otherwise, that we've seen so far that has a chance of one-shotting a Land Raider is the Storm Surge, and it's a 400 plus point model. And even then, I mean, it needs 2 3 ups. It needs to hit both shots, and it's only a 24-inch range. So you know that in of itself, even the railgun can't one shot something. It only does what 12 damage max. So yeah, we'll just have to see. Um, they He says, I hope after Chaos Knights they'll show Black Templars. So they've specifically said they're not doing a faction focus for the Space Marine chapters.
yeah.
So BT, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, we're not getting a faction focus, unfortunately.
Does not
Um,
mean we're not getting rules though,
we are
because they have already
100% getting an
said getting
index.
rules.
Yes, we are getting our own indexed and our own codex. Everyone in that, we talked about it in our last video, or one of our videos, where I had the picture of all the different books. We're on there. We're getting our own codex and our own index rules. So not to fear there. So let's move out of the shooting phase into something much more exciting, the charge phase. It's unlikely. Well, I don't know if it's unlikely or not. I don't know if we'll be able to reroll charges or not as Black Templars. That's something I'm certainly going to miss.
Yeah.
They don't specifically say what engagement range is in this leak that I saw, so presumably it's still 1 inch. Um, I'll have to go back and look again, but I don't. There, it must be somewhere that's not. I don't know. I may have just missed it, but I don't believe it's changed because they used base to base and engagement range differently. Um, however, the one of the big changes is now when you are charging and among other things, piling, consolidating, all that things. If you can get into base to base, you must without breaking coherency. So if you charge a unit and you're charging from deep strike, you need a 9. You get it, awesome, and you roll a 10, right? Um, if you can get every model that you can get into base to base without breaking unit coherency, you must do so, which removes a ton of fight phase shenanigans that there used to be able to do, which on the one hand was really tactical, and I appreciated that. But on the other hand, especially for casual players or newer players, it's sort of like a gotcha moment. Um,
Yeah.
Charging with fly can still move over other models, but range is measured as per the movement phase. So if you are uh, going up or down, you got to measure diagonally.
Yeah.
So
But
some
I
pretty
think
big
this
changes
is,
there.
yeah. I think it's important to make sure to try and get everything in base there. I like that change. That
It
I'll
makes it
say the
simpler.
top tournament players are not going to like this because it
No.
allows them to uh, be a little bit more strategic with their units, save their units from um, blowback. There's a lot of different shenanigans that you can do to protect your units if you know that you're not going to kill it back and things of this nature. Positioning
Yeah.
for afterwards, the
Using the
pylons.
slingshot.
Yeah. So, but it makes it easier for the average player to be effective and not get hit with that, as you mentioned. It's not as gotcha.
Yeah.
So even the play field a little bit, yeah, it does take some of the tactical play away from it a little bit, but still not so much that like it breaks the game because you're still, in the scheme of things, it's only like an inch or so that you're really going to be playing
Yeah.
around with.
It,
So
Honestly, I'm fine with it. It simplifies the game. It makes positioning in the charge and fight phase that much easier. You don't have to fuddle about with like, oh no, I want to keep him a millimeter away, that kind of
yeah,
stuff. So yeah, so on to the fight phase, the best phase of them all. So this is drastically different as far as there's a lot of changes here to go over. So first of all, there's only two steps. Everyone everyone was confused by fights first, fights last, fights in the middle, fights before, fights your mama. It's all just was so many questions around like, well, how does that work? So now there's only two steps. You get fight first and everybody else. So they simplified that. They also simplified the fact that as now the players whose turn it is not always picks first period, which I like actually, because if you have a unit that has fights first built in, now that unit is actually benefiting from that rule when somebody charges them because you get to go first with that unit. So that makes sense, and I like that a lot. Um, Charging grants fights first. I don't think I put that on here, but charging grants fights first. It gives you the fights first special ability. Um, so um, so yeah, so pretty big change there. Very simple. Fights first. Everybody else works alternate. Player whose turn it isn't goes first. Super simple. It eliminates. I hope that they just completely got rid of fights last because it was an obnoxious trying to figure out the order and like what if I have both and what if there was too much confusion around it. So I think they're just getting rid of it entirely. Hopefully.
yeah. I believe, don't quote me, I think I saw something in one of the articles where they said they're combining the terms into the two of them.
Yeah.
So,
So now Pylon, they've completely killed the slingshot ability. I did a video about this. If you guys remember, a Templar's tip about how to slingshot a unit. That's completely dead. You cannot do it at all now. And here's why. So Pylon, if you have a unit and they are not within engagement range, let's say dudes killed, you charge two guys in, and a bunch of models died, and now your one unit is not in engagement range anymore, but they're still eligible to be chosen as a unit because they charged. They can pile in. If they if they cannot reach engagement range, then you can't pile in. So if you kill off the unit, like I described in my slingshot video with the other unit, The unit that's left, they're just sitting there. They can't do nothing because they cannot pile in. So that's pretty big. You also have to reach base if possible, base to base if possible when you pile in, just as in the charge phase. Um, so um, so yeah, so that's a pretty big change. I'm going to jump down to consolidation because it's very similar. If you're not engaged with a unit, then you either have to make it to engagement range of another enemy unit, or which I don't think is on my sheet right here, um, or you can also make it to, if you can make it to within range of an objective, you can go that direction instead. That's a really crucial change. However, you have to be able to like make it. It can't just be like, oh, there's an objective over there
Yep.
and I'm gonna go that way. It's I have to actually get to in within 3 inches of that objective. So like maybe if you were like on the edge of you're fighting around an objective and you had to go this way to kill the enemy, you can go back and get more dudes back on the objective. That's what that is going to be good for instead of having to go towards the other enemies, which doesn't help you. So again,
And that's going to be a 3-inch move.
right, 3 inch,
Yeah.
both of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, simplification. It makes it easier to understand and less shenanigans. So,
Yeah.
which I'm fine with. So, uh, any thoughts on those changes, Bob?
Nope. I mean, this makes it a little bit simpler. They've said from the get go, simple but not simple. If that,
Simplified, but not
yeah,
simple. Yeah,
simplified but not simple game, and I
yeah,
think I like that. So high level players are going to look at the game, I feel, and say, okay, this is not as tactically sound. I get it, I understand, but at the same time, we're not losing tactical play, if that
no,
makes sense.
no.
So you're just losing the really high end, like I'm a chess player that knows how to do this move
I'm
or set
thinking
up this
three
move.
moves ahead of you.
Yeah. So
Um,
now it's like I can still think one move ahead of you, but it's not going to be like the really high stuff. So I like that because it keeps everyone in the game more, and it makes the rule set, there's less ambiguity about what you can do, what you can't do, and if you're like, oh, I've never seen that done, and you're kind of questioning whether or not it can be done. I've never seen it happen before. So like you're looking through your book, and you're like, it's not specifically spelled out because you haven't ever seen that situation happen before.
right.
Now that that's gone, I mean
Yeah.
that stuff is, you don't have to worry about that anymore. If you're a tournament player, yeah, you're gonna have to know what's going on as far as that goes, but it helps you learn the game quicker, and I think that's important
It
because
also
especially,
removes the arguments of
yeah.
like one, whether or not you can even do what you're trying to do, and two, the like minuscule measuring of all this business. Like it removes all of that. And while like slingshotting was I thought was fun because it was a cool way to like take a melee unit and get them really far across the board if you planned correctly. I played against a game against one of my good friends. He hated it. I had to explain the rule to him like 4 times, and he was not happy about it. And it was really a bad feels for him. And so yeah, so I get losing it. I'm fine with losing stuff like that. And uh it's just one of those things that, like you said, it removes like these really intricate, like almost loopholes of play that very only the top level, high level players really understand.
Yeah.
So
And that in the end will, I in my opinion, make tournament play better for a lot of other people because right now, unless you're like on top third tables, even maybe top 50% depending on your tournament, but you will face someone that doesn't know their rules or knows all the rules in the rule book in general, and it will lead to a game that's either slower for both of you or you're having a lot of rules references that you need, and it's not as good of a game. And I feel like having it set up like this, even if it takes away some of the the more fun tactical things, you'll have a smoother game. You'll be able to finish quicker,
Yeah.
and the game in general is going to be more balanced, which I like. So
All right. Let's take a look at the comments. We've got a super chat from Scrapper. Thank you very much. He
thank you.
says, "Do you think we will need two card decks, Black Templars and Space Marines?" I assume that you're talking about the datasheet cards that you can buy. Um, Probably is my guess, but I don't know. We'll have to see how they do that since we'll be able to take a lot of the units in Codex Space Marines. We'll have our own units as well. They may include in a Black Templar card pack all of the Space Marine units that we can take. Probably not.
No,
But at the same
no.
time,
Let's be honest.
our card pack will probably be cheaper. Hopefully,
Yeah,
maybe I don't know. I'm hoping that the the new GW app, is going to be much better, and I can retire from my work as battle scribe. But we'll have to wait and see how it goes. I generally use digital stuff anyway, and honestly, there's already a program out there that parses battlescribe data into looking like 10th edition data sheets. So I'm sure there'll be a way to print your own if you don't want to have to buy them. Um, Atanis asks, when will they release codexes for Black Templars? We don't know. They've
yeah.
given us the roadmap through spring of 2024, and we're not on there yet. Space Marines is. They're the first ones, obviously, as per usual, along with Tyranids, not unexpectedly. But as far as when BT will get ours, we don't know. I know we will get one, though, so rest assured we
Indexes
will get one.
will be day one for every unit. So
Hmm.
we, as Black Templar players, will have rules specific to Black Templars day one.
Day one, yeah. Sammy says, it always seemed like the slingshot ability was definitely not intended. It was a way to take advantage of the way the rules were written, but didn't necessarily align with the design intent. I agree with that. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
something that, you know, I think once GW realized it was happening, it was too complex of an interaction for them to do anything about it, and they were just like, well, we have this thing now, I guess.
And like another example is the old version of Devout Push with the
Uh-huh.
pile in move.
Yep.
So it eliminates all of the ambiguity around stuff like that. You know, if you're not a Black Templars player, you probably didn't know about Devout Push in the old digital version of our index. So I
Yeah.
mean, but now they changed it. Devout Push is a normal move, and
Yep.
it's still
It's still very good.
one of the best
Atena
strategies in the game.
And Atanis actually also asks, I hope they don't delay. I will feel like Ultramarines. No, you won't. Trust me. You won't. We will have our own detachment in the index, and we will have our own set of enhancements and our own bespoke units as per usual. I definitely, everyone that I've talked to from my sources, Bob and I both have several in-house sources. They've all said Black Templars are going to feel very Black Templar, so I'm not concerned about it. Um, Neil says, will we see the pool of high-level players increase as a result of the simpler rules? I think we'll see a lot more closer games. Um, I think that games will be more competitive, especially in the mid boards. And people who were like not quite at that high level but really close, I think will bump into there as well. Um, so
Yeah.
um, so yeah.
Do I think this is going to turn players that are not tactically minded into better players? No, I don't. I still think the table. Okay, let me revise that slightly. I think 10th edition is going to bring a bunch of players into the game that either left somewhere, along the way. They'll come back to the game, and that will obviously increase the pool of players so that there could be potentially some top players in that, as they learn the game, that type of thing. So I think in that way, yes, there could be some more top players, but I don't think the game itself and the design is going to just magically make players
Right.
better. But what I do think it's going to do is it's going to allow the average player to not just get steamrolled by the top player. So you're not just getting, if you're facing Art of War in a tournament where they bring everyone and there's 10 of them at the tournament, and not everyone's just going to get steamrolled. It's going to have a closer game, I
Yeah.
feel. And you're not going to feel like you're at a huge disadvantage against one of those players because of these loopholes that they know that we're not going to know, and etc. So in that way, I think it's going to make the game a lot more competitive. I don't think there's going to be like a new slew or generation of top players. You either kind of have that in you or you don't. You can learn things over time through experience and that type of thing to develop into a better player. But a lot of people don't want to put that amount of effort in.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of games and a lot of practice to build yourself up. So
Yep. So let's finish up with the fight phase here. So making attacks, they've also simplified this, and I like this change a lot. Which models can fight? So now you either have to be in engagement range, which, like I said, they've specifically said base to base and engagement range in two different ways. So I think engagement range is still 1 inch. I'm gonna have to try and see if I can scour this document again to see if I can find it where it says that, or it could just not be in the leak. Who knows? Um, Either way, you either have to be within engagement range, or base to base with a friendly model who is also base to base with the enemy. Uh, this is a really big change but a very good one, I think, because it makes measuring that much easier. You're not like a half inch with a guy half inch. Oh, well, no, he's a half inch. No, he's not. Oh, let me get to. Oh, you bumped the model. No, is he in base to base? You can visually see that. You don't need to measure. You can see the bases touching. Easy, easy and done. Um, Also, for those concerned about like fat blobs of Crusaders or Terminators getting into combat, I I took a picture where I did a test a long time ago about getting into base to base with a 20-man Crusader squad with a 5-man unit of 32 millimeter bases. It can be done. They're all in base. They're all engaged. So yeah. I like this change a lot. It will make the fight phase determining who can fight that much easier. And then the other big change is you can only pick one weapon. So if you've got both a power fist and a chainsword, you pick one. You cannot split attacks between the two. So you're going to pick one weapon, and there's only one exception to that, and that's if your weapon has the extra attacks rule, which we saw in the Codex, the Demons Codex reveal, where it was like some of their demon weapons. It's sort of like the way Malefic works. They can only make X number of attacks with the weapon, and that's it. So this is definitely a change. Being able to split attacks was sometimes useful. Um, I know I did it with Helbert a couple times where I chose like some of them smash and some of them sweep. But again, it also simplifies the game. You pick one weapon and that's it. So, um, so yeah. So I like that change a lot. Welcome back, Bob. I don't know if you've read this part, Bob, that we were just talking about the making attacks. You have to be engagement range or base to base with a friendly who's also base to base.
yes, I did see it.
Completely eliminates the nonsense of trying to measure. You don't have to worry about it. It's you can visually see, yeah, they're in base to base. Okay, done. Let's move on. Let's roll dice. Um, and only one weapon can be used. So, um, which is fine. I'm fine with that. Uh, Avon says, "Howdy, folks. How are you? Thanks for joining us
Hello.
this morning." So speaking of making attacks, let's look at making attacks. So there's a couple changes here. Hit and wound rolls can never be modified by more than plus or minus one. There's no more stacking. So if you've got a -1 to hit from something, you can't stack +2 to hit and come out -1. It's just -1. You cannot stack multiples to get rid of a negative. So that wording is all gone. It's literally just cannot be more than plus or minus.
Yeah.
so um, so yeah, saving throws can also never be modified by more than plus one. No more
This
zero
one I
plus.
like.
No more zero plus terminators in cover.
Yeah, I like this one because it even though we were able to have this uh, in different ways in some of our units, I think this prevents some even like stronger units that are you can buff them up. You know, there's I can name off a bunch of them: Thousand Sun, Terminator blocks, you know,
Ogrins,
Terminators for
Fulgurins, or whatever they are.
Ogrins. Yeah, there's a ton of different things that can just basically they're unkillable. I don't like things that are unkillable.
Yeah.
Yes, you can bring down lethality in general. That's okay, but like if you get things that you just literally can't interact with and they just run over you, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Dark Dark Angels is another one, even though they did get nerfed,
Hmm.
um, but still they are able to take advantage of this. Um, so yeah, I like that one a lot actually.
So we don't have a slide for it, but we're going to talk about some of the weapon special rules and other special rules and things like that. So obviously, Feel No Pain is back. If you're an old player like us, you know what Feel No Pain is. We've talked about Feel No Pain, even though it wasn't a
Mhm.
rule in ninth. It was a rule, but it wasn't named that. Didn't actually have a name, which is why everyone called it Feel No Pain because that's what it was. It's back as an official rule, which is nice. They've changed Explodes. Explodes is now simplified, thankfully. Instead of having 50 different things, it's just called Deadly Demise. And when a model is destroyed, it works the same way. You roll a d6 on a 6, it explodes, and every unit within 6 inches of that model, it's just a flat 6 inches now, um, is takes a number of mortal wounds indicated um, by whatever the number is. So if it's like Deadly Demise D3, they all take D3 mortal wounds.
I
Um,
like this one too because there was a lot of different
Simplifies.
vehicles
There
that
was
had
so many.
different. Most of
Bro,
them were sixes, but there were some with fours and some with fives, and it's like, what do you need? Well, you have to look at the data sheet, find out which one, what role you needed.
would you
So
like
I
me to
like
pull up
this.
Battle Scribe and tell you how many different ones there are in Space Marines alone?
Yeah,
I'm so
it's
glad
just
for
bullshit.
this. It just makes it so much easier to remember what happens when it actually blows up because it's not very often. And when it does, you're like, all right, now I got to look up what does it do because I don't remember. So yeah, so weapon abilities. Now GW previewed a lot of weapon abilities. So we're not going to talk about any of the ones that are previewed unless we just people have questions or we're just happen to talk about them. But I specifically want to go over some that were in the leak that are new or not seen yet. So pistols basically work the same way. Um, I feel like there was something that was slightly different, and now I can't remember what it was. Um, you can still only shoot pistols or all your other guns. Um, but it says if a model is equipped with one or more pistols, unless it is a monster or vehicle weapon. So monsters and vehicles, if they have pistols and other guns, they can shoot them all. I think we're going to see a return for the Invictor, his heavy bolter being a pistol class again, um, because it literally is a pistol for him. So, so yeah. So I think we're going to see a return of that. Um, Super chat from Dylan. Thank you so much for your support. Hey guys, tuned in late with a bad connection from a tour on Mali. I'll rewatch everything though. Thanks for all you do for the BT community and for the 40K community as a whole. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much. Thank you for your
Yeah, we
support.
appreciate it.
We really appreciate that. We couldn't do this without you guys. So any, all the support that you guys give us is super beneficial, and it's amazing. I'm always humbled by the amount of support and the, amount of subscribers that we have for something that we are extremely niche. We're only Black Templars. and we have over 6,500 subs, which is pretty awesome. I never thought that we would see that. And we've built such an awesome community in the Discord. I'm really, really happy with how cool everyone is on the Discord. Like, we have moderators, and there's us too, and I think we don't even get scammers and like bots
I,
like on our like we haven't really had to do any moderating. It's been so
yeah,
awesome. It's such a great community.
it's been
I'm
like
just super
6 months,
thankful.
maybe one or
Yeah.
two.
Yeah, we occasionally get like a bot and that's it. But like really we haven't had to do like it's been such a wonderful community. Everybody really gets along and really trades great ideas. Which is awesome and it's so cool to see it so active. So thank you guys. So let's go back to these rules. Um, Lance is a new one. Weapons with Lance in their profile are known as Lance weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if the bearer made a charge move, this turn add 1 to the attack's wound roll. I don't know if Black Templars or Space Marines are going to get anything like this. Maybe Outriders might get something. I don't know. I'm certain that Eldar Shining Spears and Custodes bikes and probably get Lance because they have
Yeah,
lances. Um,
Drakari.
but it's yeah, Drakari. It's a cool rule nonetheless. I like it. Um, what else did they have in here? So they didn't really. They've already previewed Blast, but I want to just mention how pleased I am that Blast is so much better than it was before. Because it used to be Blast, it's like, well, okay. The most of the things that had Blast, I probably wasn't targeting mobs with, right? But now, like for example, I also play Necrons. I know heresy, but listen, I don't want to hear it. You have a Drakari army, so
Haven't played it yet.
that doesn't
I will
matter.
stick
You
to that.
you own models. But like for example, the Doomsday Arc has Blast. Well, it's damage 4, which is good for like elite infantry like Terminators. Um, and I'm sure the Plasma, Redemptor Plasma will probably have Blast. But now instead of like needing to have more than 5 guys to have a minimum number of shots or whatever. Now, when you just get more shots, so like if you target a 10-man Terminator squad with a Doomsday Arc, you're getting what is it, D6 plus 3 shots. That's significant. So I like the way Blast works now. So yeah, indirect fire. Can't remember if they talked about this or not. Um, but in any case, they've changed indirect fire. Now it's no longer as brutal as it was. It's still pretty good. But now it's just -1 to hit, and the unit gets the benefit of cover. So, which is, before you could get cover and the +1 save, which was ridiculous. But they simplified it again, and it's not as brutal as it used to be, which is good. Um,
Grand
Precision.
Force asked
Yeah,
real quick.
yeah.
Would you guys ever consider doing some bat rep tutorials for the new 10th edition rules? It would be great for us rookies to see the gameplay. So you guys are going to be in luck. It's been something that has been a very, very long time coming, but I actually have a group of friends that are going to be joining the game fresh in 10th edition. They didn't want to start and learn the game in 9th edition, but I convinced them 10th edition they will start, and they are in agreement that they will be that they'll allow me to record the games, which a lot of my locale does not want to be on camera, so they have not wanted. I haven't been able to do bat reps because no one wants to be on camera. So I will be able to get initial, early, from the beginning newbie games in for us to put on the channel. So stay tuned for that.
Yep, absolutely. Precision. This we've seen a couple weapons with precision, but they did not detail what it is. Weapons with precision in their profile are known as precision weapons. Each time an attack is made and such a weapon successfully wounds an attached unit, If a character model in that unit is visible to the attacking model's player can choose to have that attack allocated to that character model instead, following the normal attack sequence. So, a couple of things to note. If you have an attached character, you cannot allocate wounds to that character. So even if you're the controlling player, that means that you can't take a stupid durable character and tank wounds for your unit. So that is gone. Um, Not that it was ever a thing in ninth. I think it was in seventh. Yeah, they used to be able to like take like a really
The
durable
attach.
character and you attach him and you tank all the wounds on him until he was dead, and then your unit was still intact. So you can't do that, which is good because that's kind of bad feels. But also, precision does not allow your opponent to pick out your special weapons in the squad, only attached characters. So if you don't have an attached character, precision does nothing, which is cool. I like it. It makes snipers useful. I'm sure snipers are all going to have this. Makes snipers useful. So yeah, I like this rule. What else we got? Hazardous. So, plasma, with the lack of rerolls that we were going to get, made Hellblasters and Inceptors basically useless without those reroll ones. However, Hazardous has changed. So now, um, Hazardous, it's a big wall of text, but basically it boils down to this. Let's say we have a squad of Hellblasters. I got 5 guys. I shoot all my shots. So I shoot all my shots, and once I've shot, I take the number of dice equal to the number of dudes who shot a hazardous weapon, and I roll 5 dice in this case. If I get any ones, a model dies. So for each one that I get, a model dies, which is way less brutal than 3 to 5 shots on those units, and any ones. Just so your chances of a guy dying are significantly less. If it's a character or a vehicle, they take 3 mortal wounds instead. This can allow there to be 2 wounded models in a unit. If you have a character who took 3 wounds from plasma or precision, and the squad has hazardous weapons and they have a wounded guy, or wounds from something else. But yeah, so character or vehicle takes 3 mortal wounds on a one after they shoot. Doesn't matter how many shots, and everybody else you just kill a guy. So I kind of wish it was mortal wounds onto like 1 mortal wound, but at the same time, I it's still much less lethal than it was, which is fine with me. So
This one makes me a little bit more nervous,
why?
simply because this is a separate role that can't be modified or re-rolled in general.
Hmm.
So, where we could have like a captain or what have you, giving that buff to that unit, and any ones they could re-roll that one to try and get out of that. Now this is a separate role, completely unmodifiable, presumably, unless there's some stratagem out there or whatnot. But if you roll one, it just dies, just period. There's nothing, no getting out of it. So it's like an
Um,
extra on top of that.
so just looking ahead to the stratagems, the command reroll does allow you to reroll a hazardous test.
Okay.
So that's good. So if you're got Grimaldus and his plasma pistol on 1 wound and you roll a 1, you can re-roll that so he doesn't die. So yeah. Um, what else do we got? Extra attacks. I kind of talked about this a little bit. They're basically like malefic weapons, only without the not AP modifier. It's just you make a set number of extra attacks, and that's it. Um, Grand Enforcer asks, "What if you roll 5 dice and each hits 1? Do all 5 die?" Yes. So
Yep.
if you roll 5 dice, it's after you shoot, so you get to shoot all your shots, and then you just roll 5 dice. If you roll 5 ones, yeah, they're all dead.
Yeah, that's why I say like it makes me a little nervous.
That
You're
being
gonna you're
said,
gonna you're gonna blow your shots, but I mean,
you're not as that's that's really statistically unlikely. And the other
have
thing
you
is
seen my
that
rolling?
you're well, you know,
Well,
um,
since I got the IN dice, that's not as bad.
that's good. That's good. Speaking of which, now's probably as good as time as any. We're a little more than halfway through our broadcast to talk about our partnership with Baron of Dice. IN Dice are back in stock. There are rounded corner ones if you want those. You will have to select them specifically from the drop down. They do default to the square corner ones, which is what we prefer, but it was sort of a production accident. They were supposed to be a different dice and they got engraved with our logo instead. So if you want some rounded corner dice, you can get some rounded corner ones too. Um, Maybe you want them for markers, for wound markers or something like that. In any case, they're back in stock. We have our very soon, we're going to have our Patreon only dice. I cannot wait to show you guys these dice. They're really, really cool looking. It's an exclusive design. You have to be a Patreon member in order to order them. And our Castellan level patrons will receive a free pack of them after two months of being a patron. Really looking forward to showing those. We also got some other things in the works. We're looking at, doing different T-shirts as well. We're talking with Baron of Dice on doing some objective markers. With our logo with templarized, should be really cool. We're working on the design right now. Um, some really cool things coming with our partnership with Baron of Dice. Keep on the lookout for those things. We'll of course make a community post and we'll post in the Discord as well. And once I have those Patreon dice in hand, I will definitely be making a video to show them off because they're really cool.
Yeah,
So, so yeah. What other special rules do we have here? I think that's all the ones that I saw. There's obviously deployment abilities. Deep Strike is basically Deep Strike. We all know Deep
yeah.
Strike. Scouts is sort of like that pre-game move that a lot of armies have. Leader, that's the bodyguard unit. We've talked a lot about leaders already. I don't think I need to read the rule. Um, Infiltrators is the same as it is now, except now it's a same. It's concealed positions basically. Um,
One thing I want to note about the scouts that's kind of cool that it hasn't been the case
yeah.
is if you have a scout unit. I'm not sure how many that we're gonna have. Obviously, scouts, but if you go put that unit in a dedicated transport, that dedicated transport can make that scout move for you. So that's kind of a cool little change.
That is cool. That is cool. Um, strats. So the leak also had all the strats for that are the core strats. Command reroll, um, which is basically the same as it is now. Hit roll, wound roll, damage, saving throw, advance roll, charge roll, desperate escape test, or a hazardous test. Um, or just after you have rolled the dice to determine the number of attacks made for a weapon for an attack, a model, or a unit from your army. Basically the same, with it being as uh, precious of a resource as ever.
Mhm.
This is even more of a trap than ever. The only time you're going to use this, assuming we don't get reroll charges from a different source, probably going to be a reroll charge, um, or try to keep a model alive from a hazardous test or something like that. Um,
If it gives you points.
if it gives you points, if it swings the game in your favor. Counteroffensive, basically exactly the same. Still 2 CP. Epic Challenge. This is a new one. It's 1 CP. Fight phase when a character unit from your army is within engagement range of one or more attached units is selected to fight. The target one character model in your unit. And the effect until the end of the phase, all melee attacks made by that model have the precision ability. So that's pretty cool. You can use it to pick out an enemy model and fight, and you don't have to be in base to base with them.
Yeah, that's the key. It
No
doesn't have
more
to be
hiding in
base
the
to base.
back,
Yep.
stinky Xenos. So I do like that one. Also, they color coded these. So green is either player's turn, blue is your turn, red is the opponent's turn. I love the format on these because it's got 3 or 4 bullet points. It's when, the target, the effect, and any restrictions.
Yep.
So it makes it very super clear, which is, we've already seen some of them, which is awesome. Insane Bravery. As you would expect, Insane Bravery lets you pass a battle shock test. The cool thing is you get to see if you failed it first. So I guess that's technically the way it is now, right? Or no, now you have to roll. You have to do it before you roll. So now you get to roll your battle shock. If you failed, um, even though, and this was that one exception to using strats on a battle shocked unit, you can use this and they're no longer battle shocked. It's also no longer once per game, and it's only 1 CP. So this is good because, that crucial unit I needed to keep points, keep my opponent from scoring more points than me, just failed their battle shock test. Well, let's put that CP on there and make them pass, right?
Yep.
So that's a good strat there. Um, Grenade. This is an interesting one in your shooting phase. One grenades unit from your army that is not within engagement range of enemy units and has not been selected to shoot this phase. Select one enemy unit that is not within engagement range of any units from your army and is in within 8 inches and visible to your grenade units. Roll 6d6 on each 4 up that enemy suffers a mortal wound. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I like that one. Um,
Yeah, and that
Tank
was.
Shark. Go ahead.
And I was wondering where on the data sheets where the grenades were, and yeah, they kind of when we got this leak, I
Yeah,
did see the strats on these, and I was like, oh, there it is.
there it
And
is.
the
Yeah.
next one is really kind of exciting for
Man,
me.
Tank Shock is back, baby. I love this one. This is this is pretty damn brutal. It can be. If you roll hot, this could be really good. So Tank Shock, I remember Tank Shock from if you played in 6th, 7th, 4th, 5th, all the old editions, we used to have Tank Shock. Now it's a strat, which is fine because otherwise it'd be abused. But I really, really like this. So you charge in your charge phase, you pick one vehicle from your army. Until the end of the phase, after your unit ends a charge move, select one enemy unit within engagement range of it, and select one melee weapon your unit is equipped with. Roll a number of d6 equal to that weapon's strength characteristic. If that strength characteristic is greater than the enemy's unit's toughness, roll 2 additional d6. For each 5 up, that enemy suffers 1 mortal wound to a max of 6. So if you tank shock somebody with a Land Raider, they
Eat
have,
four
what is it?
mortal wounds on average.
They have, what is it?
8 attacks,
Is it
then
8
they get the
attacks?
additional 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna end up with 10 rolling 10 dice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So yeah, give me those death or glory rolls with the power
Yeah.
fist. Remember those?
Yeah. So
I'm going
it's
to kill it.
yeah. So this is like I don't know. This is pretty cool way
I
to
like
get
it.
an average of 4 more wounds, possibly more. I mean,
If you roll hot, I mean, I don't think it's 4 from a Land Raider because it's a 5 up.
yeah, it's a
So
33% roundup.
yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, even still, a way to like, especially with like big tanks, that have a lot of attacks and are high strength, like Land Raiders. This is good. This is good. So, and then the rest of these are in your opponent's turn. So rapid ingress, 1 CP at the end of your opponent's movement phase. We saw this one with the Terminators, where you can deep strike. You can arrive on the battlefield as if it were the reinforcement
Yep.
step of your movement phase. Um, so Terminators can use this to deep strike, which is awesome. Um, the uh, the other thing is, and we'll get to this next one in a minute. Uh, Most units are just going to arrive strategic reserves, which is a little different now. So from turn 3 on, you can arrive in any battle edge, even your opponent's deployment zone. That's a pretty big difference. But you can use this in your opponent's turn, which is pretty neat. I like it. And then I'm going to skip over to the next one. Heroic Intervention is now a strat. It's 2 CP, which is pretty brutal, especially if you fail. But in your opponent's charge phase, just after an enemy unit ends a charge move, one target from your army that is within 6 inches of that enemy unit and would be eligible to declare a charge against that enemy unit as if it were your charge phase.
Key
Um,
is it doesn't say character, so
nope.
obviously it's unit that you have. So you can make that giant Crusader blob that you got heroic intervention.
Yep. Or those Terminators that just deep struck on your opponent's turn. Now,
Yep.
granted, you have to be within 6 inches, and that unit has to have ended a charge move. So maybe they charged something nearby your Terminators, but it's like it really makes it's if you have that 2 CP, it's like, man, do you sure you want to do that? Because I can heroically intervene these Terminators. So it's just something that's really cool. Vehicles cannot do it unless it's a walker. So
Yep.
dreadnoughts can do it, which is cool. But yeah, it's 2 CP, and yeah, it would suck to fail that charge. But that could be a crucial moment. So I like it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of cool. I am a little disappointed that they didn't word something in there. The all on your own characters uh, have the ability to do that
yeah, it's okay.
innately, but
It might be a
yeah.
little busted for some characters, especially some beat stick characters. Um, but
But
in any
I'm
case,
kind of I'm picking minor picks right at
yeah,
this point.
yeah. Fire Overwatch. When your opponent's movement phase or charge phase, just after an enemy unit is set up, or when an enemy unit starts or ends a normal, advance, fallback, or charge move. So Overwatch is now in the movement phase too, and starts or ends. So if you were in range at the beginning before they moved and they move out of range, you can still shoot them, um, which is awesome. So you pick one unit from your army that's within 24 inches of that enemy unit, and that would be eligible to shoot if it were your shooting phase. You can shoot that enemy as if it were your shooting phase, and then it's still sixes to hit. So is this going to see lots of play? No, except for flamer units, because or torrent units, I guess. So those pyroblasters. Oh, look at those little gaunts just scurrying over to that objective.
And I'm sure there's
Not
going to be
anymore, they're
yeah,
not.
yeah, that'll be good for those units. That's definitely a good call out. But I think
Or
we're going
just
to see
absurd number of like hits, right? Or maybe an oath of moment unit, and you're gonna fire like some centurions at them or something like that.
yeah,
It's not gonna be one of those you're gonna be using it every turn because hitting on sixes sucks. But flamer units or torrent units where you auto hit is gonna be great, um, especially against like weaker units like guardsmen and gaunts and stuff like that where you can just like annihilate a whole unit with a blob of pyroblasters. So um, go to ground. This used to be an ability that you could do way back in the day. Basically, after an enemy unit has been selected its targets, one infantry from your unit uh, that was selected as a target. Um, until the end of the phase, all the models in the unit have a 6-up invul and the benefit of cover. So this is okay. situational. I don't foresee it being used all the time, but I do like it. It does give you, a little bit of a boost,
Yeah,
especially if you're like gonna get hit with like a bunch of AP1, get that benefit of cover to negate it. And there's no detriment. It used to be when you went to ground, you couldn't do anything the next turn. Now it's just a stratagem.
yeah. It's just
So,
like using smoke screen for like infiltrator unit that
yep,
you want to make sure that that stays alive on your objective. So
yep.
perfect for that.
Speaking of smoke screen, that's the next stratagem.
Yeah, there
um,
you go.
when your opponent's shooting phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, one smoke unit from your army that was selected as the target of attacks. Until the end of the phase, all the models in your unit have the benefit of cover and stealth. So +1 save and -1 to shoot. Smoke is much better than it used to be.
Yep.
Because now you get cover too. Um, so yeah. So that's just about all the leaks, I think. I really like all these strats. There isn't a bad one, to be honest, which is really good. You know, a lot of times you end up with too many, in ninth, you ended up with so many strats and like only like a handful of them were any good. Um, so, um, so yeah. Um, so that's, I think everything that I can think of from the leaks.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm really excited. I think the game looks a lot more streamlined, a lot easier. Going to be a lot less rules arguing and rules loopholes. Um, I'm excited.
Yeah,
What do you
this is
think?
a I think this is going to be a much more quick game. So, the average person gets through Game of 40K at 2,000 points in probably 3.5 hours. Tournament
Hmm.
players can do it 2.5.
Yeah.
But I think you're gonna see that naturally at least drop 15 20 minutes off of every game,
Hmm.
simply because the games are more streamlined. You basically know exactly what's going on. The rules are a lot easier. You're going to be able to get to do the stuff, and presumably the streamline from the rules is going to transfer over to the indexes as well. So you're going to see the same style of rule building in those faction specific rules, which I think is going to be really beneficial for the game. It's going to allow it to bring more players into the game, which is great for GW. It's great for us. It means we're going to be able to find more games,
Yep.
uh, hopefully, for those that play outside a closer knit group of players. But I think overall it's going to be an excellent thing. It I think also is going to be really key for us tournament players that we're going to have. It's going to be really difficult based on these rules to slow play. Um, these rules really kind of discourage that. A lot of the things is you can't really just be like, oh, you know, be methodical because you're trying to be super tactical with things, because it's a nope, you got to be in base space. Nope, you have to move through the
Yeah.
things. Nope,
It's
you have to do all
easy.
this.
There's no
So
nitpicking of like, they're making it less about, how many half inches and quarter inches of movement here or there or whatever, and more like things that are very easy to discern. Are you dudes in base to base with your other dudes who are in base to base? Yes or no? It's very easy to see that. You don't even need a tape measure. It's literally just look. Oh, cool. All right, cool. One, two, three, four, five, six. These guys are swinging.
yeah,
You know. So so yeah. I love it. I love everything I've seen so far. None of these rules strike me as, oh, I hate that. Every single one of them is an improvement to the game. Um, so yeah.
I do think I want to notice. I've been watching these faction focuses, and I'm in many of the different groups because I want to know my enemy, and every single person, or let's say every single group, not person. There is a ton of complaining about the rules that they're getting. I don't feel like these are huge nerfs to any faction.
Yeah.
Like, there's things I didn't necessarily particularly care about in the Space Marine ones, but like people are talking about the cows, like and their ballistic skill being changed. I'm like, there's going to be pros and cons to both. They're making it a balanced game. That's something that like they're actively trying to do. So yes, that we talked about this in previous videos, how they're trying to make sure like with the data sheets and the balance updates, they've been trying to make it balanced for everyone. Now I feel like they are legitimately, instead of doing like we're just resetting everyone and it's just going to be you're going to get just the most basic rule ever, and you get a little book and buy it from us and wait for your codexes to get flavor. You're seeing flavor, but you're also seeing nothing really. I don't see anything that's super overpowered yet. Like,
I'm
I'm
seeing
not
anything
scared
that's
of
overpowered.
anything, and nothing is saying like, that really sucks.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing a lot of players that are like, this is the worst thing ever. Like, why do we play XYZ army anymore? And I'm gonna sell
Well,
my army.
I have
I just
two
think it's
two thoughts on
ridiculous.
that. Number one is if nobody's happy, then they've done a good job. And number two is complaining is the real hobby of 40K. I mean, let's be real, right? You know, so I've seen a lot of salty people too. I'm in multiple different discords of various. Some are specific, some are generic, like Auspex and the Battlescribe one. And man, like the assault is like like Death Guard players are all crying about the loss of disgustingly resilient, and it's like you don't need it. Your Terminators are freaking tough six. Like, get over yourself. Like, you're gonna be fine. I didn't see anything wrong with the Death Guard reveals. I thought they looked durable, like they should be, and with the
Mhm.
overall um, decrease in lethality, they don't really need like there are some guns that lost damage. The Ion Blaster from um, Votan lost a pip of damage. That's huge. So, lethality has gone down across the board. And I think people were expecting like I don't know what they were expecting, like, and it's not like everybody's losing rules. Like Space Marines don't have and they shall know no fear or combat squads. Like that's not a rule that's listed in the thing. So does that mean we're not gonna be
Yeah.
able to combat squad guys? I mean, I don't know, unless it's like a rule on their data sheet, which
Yeah.
we haven't
But the
seen.
but the thing with this stuff, and I really like though, even though there's like complaining and salt from every faction so
Hmm.
far, the engagement from the community overall is like I haven't seen it this high in a long time.
Yeah,
People are invested in this game going
yeah,
forward. So
yeah,
I think that's really, really cool to see. And I think it's going to result, I think everyone's going to be pretty happy
yeah.
overall with the list. I think it's going to be, hey, if I don't want to play Black Templars and I want to roll my Drukari that I haven't played, even though I've owned the army for 3 years, maybe I might.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like with uh some of these reveals, like yeah, you don't have this rule or that rule anymore, but none of the army rules and none of the detachment rules seem overpowered. They're all about on par, and I'll be honest, like everyone complained at first about Space Marines, like, oh, you know, not enough. I thought they were reducing rerolls. Here we go, Space Marines. Honestly, Oath of Moment is solid, but it's not overpowered because we're not giving out like wide swaths of rerolls to everybody like we were. And to be perfectly honest, Oath of Moment is really boring compared to some of these other rules. Like the night one is really neat. The Tau one is really cool, where you get to like make decisions about like, all right, I'm gonna spot for this guy, and this guy's gonna shoot, and they're gonna work together, and this guy's gonna have better ballistic skill. So like it gives you choices and decisions to make, and I really like that. And anybody who didn't think that they weren't gonna lose any rules at all was just kidding themselves. Um, yeah, overall, everything looks great. I haven't seen a faction or a thing that I was like, oh my god, that's OP. Um,
Or underpowered.
yeah, Yeah. So yeah. Lux asks, have you already talked about the new rules for characters? I am not so sure what to think about them. Yes, we did talk a little bit about that earlier. I was not happy about attached characters when they first revealed it, but the more I've seen, the more I've thought about it, I actually like it. Um, because number one, it simplifies the business that everybody hated about character protection and Lookout Sir in ninth edition. Everybody hated that rule and hated the fact that you could like hide a unit that was closer, that couldn't be shot itself, that was protecting the character, and it was convoluted, and people thought it was stupid and hated it, and there was a lot of arguments about it. Um,
Mhm.
this simplifies it. It also allows you to give direct like you to take units that used to have an aura buff and consolidate it to just that unit and leave the aura buffs for the big epic guys like robust gorilla
Building.
Gru and Helbricht and Abby and those type of characters because they should have an aura, right? And I also like the way they've done those where it's like cool, you choose one of these three or four abilities and it lasts until the start of your next command phase. I like that a lot. It gives you choice, and it's not overpowered. And they all seem, for the most part, pretty good. There's a couple that are like, all right, this one's better, but none of them are like, these suck. Only ever use this one. They all have a use, depending on what's going on. So, I'm actually pretty happy with the way characters are going to be. We talked about this a little bit earlier. It's attaching a character to a unit is going to be a important choice now, and it's also going to be one where we're probably going to want to attach characters to more durable, larger units. So like not an MSU unit. So
Yeah, to add on to what Alex said, I kind of agree with exactly everything he said there. But um, I like it in the fact that it takes away from the somewhat controversial opinion here, but it takes away from the aura stacking from armies, which early on in ninth edition we could do that with a ton of different characters. We take our four characters and we have like a bunch of different auras, and it makes it like really impossible to kill 2 or 3 units. And there's a lot of armies that could do that type of thing. I don't like it where you can't interact with something. Yeah,
yeah,
so this takes that away. Um, yeah, obviously I'm going to use it because it's something that we have to use, but like it's really kind of feels bad for your opponent when there's nothing you can do about it. And that kind of takes it away because it makes it so that it's individualized to a specific unit. You have to invest presumably a similar amount of points as we're currently investing on these for a single unit
hmm
and not a whole one. So
yeah,
over the course of the game, obviously that happens with aura characters anyway as your unit spreads. But typically, when you're running the first and second turn, those are very important turns where you can do a lot of damage potentially. Um, those auras being stacked together is really, really tough to deal with.
castling
And
is not as good.
yeah, castling is, yeah, exactly. So
Lux also asks, do you think Hilbert will keep his aura? It was the best aura in the game. So I don't know what they're gonna do with Hilbert. So we've seen like regular characters like a Space Marine captain or a lieutenant or whatever, giving only a buff to the unit they're with. Um, the or just a generic overall army buff. I think the captain gives a free stratagem once per game or something. I can't remember. Um, so um, so yeah. But then we've also seen like Guilliman who has like an Abaddon and the big name characters that are like choose from this list of things that happen. I could see them going a number of different ways. They could do like choose from this list. They could be like just this unit gets it. It could be some combination where he gives his unit something and then chooses from a shorter list. Um, I don't know. I think Helbrecht probably is worthy of an aura because he's the chapter master of our army. He's on a huge base, so I could see him getting an aura still, um, but I don't know. We'll have to wait
Yeah,
and see.
I think he's probably gonna be similar to like Gilliman in his style of rules, but just not as good.
Not as
Because
wide reaching or as many options. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We have a question from Sammy. Have we had have we seen any examples of the new chaplain litanies to get an idea how their buffs would work? Sorry if this was already covered. Not so far, but the speculation is that they're going to be very similar to, like, say, the captain and the
Or a librarian,
lieutenant,
or
librarian.
the psychers, where they have like a couple abilities. Maybe they both go off. Maybe you have to roll for one of them,
Yeah,
kind of thing. I'm expecting something along those lines. We might get a choice. I might get like the Guy Layman style list. These are your litanies. Choose one. Um, I could see that. That would be pretty cool, even if they weren't auras. But it's like, choose from this list of things that just happen every turn.
yeah,
I could see them doing that for chaplains, um, especially Grimaldus would get our like Black Templar ones.
yeah.
So
Nothing equivalent, but like the librarian is probably the closest that we're going to see
yeah.
to it so far before they
I'm
release
surprised
the
they haven't
rules.
previewed a chaplain, because like a lot of armies have that, like even Tau have like a chaplain style ability. There's tons of Space Marines that have, utilized a lot of chaplains. Um, so yeah, kind of interesting. So we'll have to see. I'm
Yep.
looking forward to seeing what they offer though, because I've been pretty pleased, like I said, with everything so far. So Brendan says, "Hear me out. A Spartan with 20 main Crusader blob inside might not be great, but it'll be fun." Yeah, would be interesting. Or you know, a Land Raider Crusader with 15 man Primaris Crusaders in it, or 10 Sword Brethren in it, charging. I like that. 10 Sword Brethren with Helbricht and a Castellan attached. Let's go.
So I will say that I am going to be very careful about anything that is not in the core uh, rules, like anything.
I'm leery about Forge World. Let me just
Yeah,
put that. I'm
Forge
gonna
World.
put that out
They
there.
had. Thank
They
you.
just legends. They just did Last Chance to Buy in Legends, a whole bunch of crap from Forge World, and even from the Codex. There was a couple things like regular dreadnoughts are gone. Okay,
I
so I would not buy any Forge World right now.
Yeah,
I would wait.
yeah. I don't think that is an all-encompassing list. So just
Yeah, there could be more Last
putting
Chance
it
to Buy
out there.
stuff
Be
coming.
careful.
Yeah, so. So yeah, Bob, what do you think? We got a couple more minutes. If anyone has any
Yeah.
questions, let us know. Bob, what do you think about the psychic phase removal and what we've seen from Filthy Witches thus far? A lot of people are crying about it, as per usual. Complaining is the real hobby.
I don't think it's a huge deal. Honestly, it's gonna.
I think it's fine. Here's the thing. This is my take on it. Is number one, there's only a couple of armies in the game, maybe 3 or 4 at most, that really were like heavily, heavily invested in the psychic phase. Everybody else either has very minimal or zero interaction with it at all, and that's boring when you don't have every faction participating in a part of the game. I think what they've done is great. There's less rolling for stuff, because now your Witchfire stuff is all guns, which you can shoot in addition to your other guns. Um, and It's also feels bad, especially with really psychic heavy armies, where it's just like, all right, let me just stand here and pick up models while you kill all my stuff, and I can do nothing about it, right? Yeah, I'm fine with it. I think it'll be fine. People just need to learn to adapt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with it. There really isn't a lot to say with about that particular
It's
change.
great for
Honestly,
us as
for
Black
us,
Templars.
yeah,
Now we get armor saves against your Witchfire. So Yeah. Um, yeah, like I said,
Yeah,
I think it'll be
yeah,
okay.
yeah. As far as like the way the Black Templars are going to be going into the future, I think initially, like I said earlier in the stream, I think we're gonna see a lot more vehicles and like more durable infantry units. I tend to play MSU, so I'm going to try and make MSU work because I like that style of play better. I think it interacts with the objective game better. But there is like, it looks like there's a ton of play for like doing your large Crusader squads, running your
Hmm.
Land Raider Crusaders,
Yeah,
vehicles in general.
we'll have to see
Most of
how
the
the Land Raiders
weapons that
are.
are,
I'm
yeah,
I'm hoping that I don't know. I'm hoping that they're viable. I have two painted Land Raider Crusaders that I would love to put at least one of them back on the field. Um, you know, it's we'll have to see. They're definitely more durable. I guess points are going to matter too. If they're too expensive, they're
yeah.
going to be hard to field. So,
I was a little leery because you may remember from our video when we were talking about them. I was a little bit like, yeah, like it doesn't really excite me until I saw our tank shock. Then I got excited. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, so
all
if we
right,
can generate 4 mortal wounds, 3 to 4 mortal wounds every
yeah,
turn, even if for a CP,
yeah,
okay, I can get behind that. I
yeah,
can.
exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I uh, I really like everything I've seen so far, and I think if my math is correct, there's six more factions, seven if you count eight Imperial agents. I don't know if they'll get a faction focus or not. GW's indicated that BT and Dark Angels, and I don't know if Death Watch will get a faction focus. They were technically a supplement to Space Marines, but they're also wildly different than regulars. I don't know if they'll get one or not. I'm guessing no. Um, so that leaves six factions if you don't count Imperial agents, which means we're going to wrap up with a faction focus at the end of the month. Which means I think we probably will see like a mid-June release. Because I think what they'll do is they'll announce the pre-orders the first week of June for like 2 weeks out, and then we'll have the game. So just in time for our next Caffeine and Crusade. Yeah. Which I actually have to look at my calendar because the third weekend is the 18th. I will be on vacation that weekend. So we may want to do it the 25th or the 11th. I think it's going to depend on um, the when they release the what you call it 10th edition. I think probably we'll push ours back for the 25th. That may make sure that we've got 10th edition out. We can talk about all the new Black Templar stuff. All the new it'll be like a flurry of activity. Um, Obviously, once the index is released, we're going to start doing videos talking about our units, talking about what we think is going to be good. We're going to do list building stuff. We're going to have a ton of
Yeah.
activity. So keep your eyes on the channel. We're going to have a lot of stuff coming. Lux asks, I'm wondering how the plasma sectors will work in the new edition. If they keep 3 shots with re-rolling wound rolls, they should drop to 40 points. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. We talked about their hazardous stuff, so go back and rewatch it. You can learn about what the hazardous does. It's much better than it used to be. BT will be able to use a Psyker in 10th. No, never in 100 million years. Um, we
I'm looking for the ban button. No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, no,
Just kidding.
we are firmly planted in our hatred of psychers. That was one thing that with our ninth codex supplement, I loved that we went back from the sixth edition where it's like, oh, we don't know why we don't have psychers, blah blah blah, and making it a mystery, to we abhor them, we hate them all, they suck. Like, no, we went back to that hatred, which I love. So something that is I love the irony of it because the emperor is a psyker. So yeah. In any case, it's 11 o'clock. That's all we got time for today.
Mhm.
Thank you guys for joining us today. It's been a blast. Come check out our Discord channel. Like we said earlier, we got a ton of great folks in there. We also have Patreon with new Patreon benefits. We got Patreon dice coming soon. Who knows? Maybe we'll even make Patreon objective markers. Tune in for more information on that. And until next time, keep on crusading, guys. Have a great weekend.